Have you ever tried to force a song out of your head only to find it playing on an endless loop? Or, told yourself to stop worrying about something, which of course only made you worry more? Well, today we're diving deep into that strange, frustrating quirk of the human mind, the battle for control inside our own heads.
It seems like a pretty simple question, doesn't it? I mean, it's our brain. We should be in charge of what's going on in there. But is that really how it works? Let's put it to a quick test right now.
Okay, you ready? For the next 10 seconds, your one and only job is to not, under any circumstances, think of a big, fluffy, white polar bear. All right? Go.
So, how'd you do? Did a giant white bear just crash your mental party, completely uninvited? If it did, don't worry, you are in very, very good company. This little mental glitch is so common it actually has a name, and it tells us something really profound about how our minds work, and sometimes how they work against us.
You know, the great Douglas Adams absolutely nailed it with this quote. That feeling of furiously trying to ignore a thought, that's often the very thing that gives it power, that keeps it nagging and poking at you until you just can't help but give in.
So, this little experiment isn't just some fun party trick. It's a real, documented psychological effect called the white bear problem. And what it shows us is that when we try to just suppress a thought, we're basically setting up a game that our brain is almost guaranteed to lose.
And get this is the wildest part from the original research. The psychologist Daniel Wegner found that the people who were specifically told not to think of a white bear actually ended up thinking about it more often than the people who were told to actively think about it. It's a total backfire of mental control.
Okay, so why? Why does this happen? Why is a simple command like "don't think about it" so ridiculously ineffective? Well, the answer is that your brain basically splits the job between two different systems, and they end up fighting each other.
The official name for this is ironic process theory, and the whole idea is that every time you try to control a thought, you're actually kicking off a two-part system. There's a part that does the work, and then there's a part that checks to see if you're failing.
Just picture a tug of war happening inside your head. On one side, you have the operating process. This is your conscious mind. It's the one doing all the heavy lifting, trying really hard to think of literally anything else. But on the other side, you've got the ironic monitoring process. This one's unconscious, it's automatic, and its only job is to scan for the forbidden thing, constantly whispering, "Hey, are we thinking about a bear yet? How about now?"
Now, when you're feeling fresh, focused, and have plenty of mental energy, these two systems can kind of keep each other in check. But the whole game changes the second your brain is put under any kind of pressure.
Right. So what does happen when you're tired, or stressed out, or just trying to do two things at once? All that extra stuff puts a demand on your brain, what psychologists call cognitive load. And that cognitive load is the exact weak spot where this whole system just falls apart.
So here's how it breaks down, step by step. First, stress or just being distracted creates that cognitive load. Second, the hardworking operator, which needs a ton of energy, gets tired and starts to fail. But, and this is the key, that little automatic monitor in the background, it doesn't need much energy at all, so it just keeps on scanning. And eventually, it finds the white bear, and because the operator is too weak to shove it away, bam, the thought comes rushing right into your consciousness. That's what they call the ironic rebound.
Isn't that wild? The very system in your brain that's supposed to be on the lookout for the unwanted thought is the exact same system that serves it up on a silver platter the moment you're stressed or tired.
Okay, so this is fascinating, but how does this play out in the real world? Because let's be honest, this isn't just about imaginary bears. This whole ironic process thing has huge implications for everything from our health to how we interact with people every single day.
And this theory explains so much weird human behavior. Ever known someone who tries so hard not to be biased that stereotypes seem to pop into their head more often? Or an athlete who thinks don't miss and then they miss. It's the same thing with dieting, anxiety, trying to fall asleep. The list just goes on and on.
Look, the research is crystal clear on this. As a strategy for managing what's going on in our heads, just trying to force thoughts away is deeply, deeply flawed. The effort you put into it can actually create the very problem you're trying to solve. Let's take sports. In one study, they told experienced tennis players, okay, whatever you do, don't serve into this specific zone. Under low pressure, they were fine. But when they cranked up the anxiety, you guessed it, they started hitting the ball into that exact forbidden zone way more often. The thought, "don't hit it there," practically guided the ball to that spot.
And it's the exact same mechanism that sabotages dieting.
People who are actively trying to suppress thoughts about, say, chocolate cake, what researchers call restrained eaters. They're the ones who are most likely to binge on that very food when they get distracted or stressed. The little monitor finds the cake, and the tired operator just can't fight it off.
So if you take one thing away from all of this, let it be this. When it comes to managing our inner world, just gritting your teeth and telling yourself don't is probably not going to work. In fact, it's often the very thing that makes the problem so much worse, especially when life gets hard.
And that leaves us with a really important question, doesn't it? If this brute force method of suppressing our thoughts is basically doomed to fail, then what are we supposed to do instead? How can we learn to work with our minds instead of constantly fighting a battle we're probably going to lose? Now that is something worth thinking about.